Harley Davidson's new CEO addressed every dealer in America during a private meeting in Milwaukee, and we've confirmed what was said inside that room. This wasn't a public announcement or a PR stunt. It was direct, unfiltered, and it changed the energy instantly. The meeting was closed to the media, but sources who were inside told us the statement was short, sharp, and left the room in silence. So what exactly did he say? And why did it hit so hard? Stay till the end, because once you hear it, the whole picture starts to change. The speech that stilled the room. No one expected silence to feel this loud. It wasn't just another corporate meeting, it was a reckoning. Inside a locked Milwaukee hall, America's most battle-tested Harley Davidson dealers waited, half curious, half bracing. They'd survived recessions, recalls, and corporate reshuffles, but this felt different. He walked to the mic, like a man stepping into a confession booth. "The world outside Harley has changed faster than we've admitted," he began. "Pretending otherwise will cost us everything." One source described it like hearing the engine of the brand stall, just for a second. Because this wasn't a pep talk, it was a verdict. A line between what Harley was and what it might not be anymore. Then came the moment that would echo across every dealership in the country. The CEO leaned closer, voice low, deliberate. "We can't keep selling the past." For a heartbeat, the room forgot to breathe. And in that breath, Harley's future changed course. The meaning behind the words. It wasn't just a statement, it was a spark thrown into dry history. We can't keep selling the past. 6 words that sent ripples through every corner of Harley's empire. In them, dealers heard the unthinkable. The age of chrome nostalgia had an expiration date. For years, the company sold more than motorcycles. It sold belonging, a culture forged in oil and loyalty. So, when the CEO questioned that foundation, it felt like watching someone challenge scripture in its own church. But beneath the shock was a truth no one could deny. The world had shifted, and Harley had stayed parked too long. According to insiders, he didn't backpedal. "Heritage doesn't die," he said, "but it can't carry us alone." That's when the realization hit. This wasn't an ending. It was a demand for evolution. The man wasn't dismantling the past. He was daring them to build beyond it. Dealers who once measured pride and horsepower now faced a different question. Could Harley evolve without losing its soul? The line had drawn blood, but also purpose. When the meeting ended, the message still echoed like an idling engine. Adapt or fade. And the dealers knew if Harley couldn't sell the past anymore, then what's coming next would decide whether it could sell the future at all. The warning was clear. The rebuild had begun. If you appreciate real breakdowns without the corporate polish, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And drop a comment below. What's your take on this? We read every one, and your insights shape what we cover next. Dealers on notice. The CEO laid out his expectations, and this time there was no mistaking his tone. He wanted action. Not someday, not next quarter. Immediately. Every dealership would have to shift its focus toward community engagement and younger rider accessibility. That meant more local events, more social outreach, more training on digital platforms. He said Harley dealers couldn't just sell motorcycles anymore. They had to sell belonging. The reaction was a mix of confusion and irritation. For decades, most of these dealers had built their success on reputation and repeat customers, on knowing every rider by name, shaking hands, fixing problems in the back lot before the warranty department ever got involved. They hosted charity rides, poker runs, and open houses long before anyone at headquarters used the word engagement. So when the CEO stood there explaining the basics of community to people who were the community, it rubbed more than a few the wrong way. One longtime dealer reportedly muttered, "We sell loyalty, not hashtags." It summed up the mood perfectly. To them, the company seemed to be solving the wrong problem, chasing new metrics instead of fixing real ones like affordability, comfort, and service costs. But whether they agreed or not didn't matter. The tone of the meeting made one thing clear. This was no longer optional. The marching orders were official. He wasn't asking, he was warning. And what came next was just as telling as what he left unsaid. While the story unfolds in boardrooms, the real ride still happens out here. Gear Up Right links are in the description. The silence that spoke. When the CEO finally paused, many in the crowd waited for the usual follow-up. Product news, incentives, or at least a hint about the next lineup. But none came. No new touring upgrades, no talk of better seat ergonomics, or pricing relief for long-haul buyers. Not even a whisper about fixing dealer supply issues. Instead, he pivoted to long-term brand alignment and thanked everyone for their time. That silence told its own story. By skipping over models, features, and factory updates, he had effectively signaled that the company's next chapter wasn't about metal, it was about management. The sound of boots scuffing on the floor said more than any applause could. A few dealers lingered afterward, shaking their heads and wondering what alignment meant for a business built on torque and trust. The veterans recognized the feeling. They'd seen it in the 70s when corporate hands meddled, and again when Wall Street tried turning riders into consumers. It always ended the same: image first, profit next, loyalty last. As the crowd drifted into the Milwaukee afternoon, oil mixed with October air. Some hopeful, others wary, all carried questions. The speech was brief but heavy. Something inside Harley was shifting again, and the quiet certainty behind it felt more dangerous than doubt itself. If he wouldn't talk bikes, maybe the numbers could explain why. And those numbers were about to tell a story louder than any engine ever built. Sales slippage in the shadows. The numbers started whispering before anyone said a word. In the last 3 quarters, domestic shipments had slipped just enough to cause concern, but not enough to make headlines. Dealers began feeling it first. Bikes that used to move within a week were now sitting for a month. Trade-ins filled the backlots, waiting for buyers who never showed. Used inventory quietly grew, while new stock gathered dust under showroom lights. The pattern was subtle at first, but it was steady, and that steadiness meant trouble. For the people on the sales floor, the slowdown translated into smaller bonuses and thinner margins. Fewer sales meant fewer service contracts and fewer accessories sold. And when a dealer can't sweeten the deal with perks or discounts, the buying experience starts to lose its shine. Customers walk in expecting that same old Harley feeling. The handshake, the pride, the sense of joining something larger than themselves, but they're met with a nervous smile and talk of financing. That's not the Harley experience they remember. Behind closed doors, managers started to murmur about the numbers. They said the graphs looked like a slow leak, not a blowout, but something that could drain a company over time if ignored. It wasn't a collapse yet, but it was the kind of slide that forces big decisions from the top. When profits stall, policy changes fast, and in Milwaukee, the gears were already turning. Inside Milwaukee's walls, inside headquarters, the mood was different from the showrooms, but just as tense. Departments were being restructured, reporting lines shuffled, and new titles created overnight. Words like Customer Experience Division and Digital Engagement Metrics echoed through meeting rooms where engineers once argued over valve clearances and gear ratios. To the old hands inside the building, it felt like the soul of the company was being translated into a language they didn't speak. A few longtime engineers said the new meetings focused less on metal and more on messaging. Charts replaced chassis talk, and product updates took a backseat to presentation slides. Even the smell of the place was changing. Fewer oil-stained boots walking the floor. More polished shoes from visiting consultants. It wasn't just a generational gap, it was a cultural one. The people who had built the bikes were now explaining them to people who'd never ridden one. Not every change was bad. New hires brought structure and loyalty insight. But a divide grew. One side spoke torque and craft, the other spreadsheets and scores. The tension was clear. Change was needed, but not everyone should lead it. Once, sound sold bikes. Now, spreadsheets sell promises, and that difference was beginning to show outside the factory gates. The missing generation. Every few years, Harley runs internal demographic studies, and the latest one hit like a hard truth. The average buyer age had drifted close to 70. In some regions, the core audience was even older. That wouldn't have been alarming on its own. Older riders are loyal, well-financed, and experienced. But the real issue lay below that number. Younger riders weren't stepping in to replace them. The CEO called it the gap in the saddle, And he wasn't wrong. Riders who grew up dreaming about their first big twin were aging out of the market, while the generation that followed had different dreams entirely. They valued convenience over craft, and few wanted to spend weekends wrenching on bikes or saving for chrome upgrades. For decades, Harley sold pride and identity. Now it was fighting to sell relevance. Inside dealerships, the evidence was easy to see. The trade-in crowd came in with memories, not curiosity. They already knew what they wanted. They just wanted it cheaper. Meanwhile, the younger crowd walked past the touring line like it was a museum exhibit. The CEO's call to speak to riders not yet in the saddle wasn't a jab at tradition. It was a plea for survival. Without new blood, the culture risked fading into nostalgia, admired but inactive. Without younger riders, the whole machine slows down, and to keep it running, Harley started rewriting the rules that governed its own people. Incentives. Rewritten. The new incentive program landed quietly but hit hard. Dealers received revised scorecards that looked nothing like the old ones. Gone were the days when volume sales and service numbers determined year-end bonuses. In their place came new metrics: community engagement, online responsiveness, younger buyer conversions, and customer satisfaction ratings. For the first time, a dealer's reputation on paper could outweigh his sales record. Some welcomed the change, seeing it as a push toward better service. Others saw it as a leash. To them, it felt like headquarters was policing how they ran their shops, dictating everything from event schedules to social media tone. One dealer said it best: "I'm a mechanic, not a marketing firm." The sentiment spread quickly. Veteran owners grumbled that they were being graded like students on skills they'd never needed before. Harley's push for consistency made sense, but stumbled in execution. Rules changed monthly, training lagged, and dealers grew weary. By winter, many refused to chase metrics that didn't sell bikes, reminding leadership that loyalty isn't earned through data, only through dependability. That's when the quiet pushback started turning into something louder, a low, steady rumble that would soon roll through every dealership in the country: the dealer revolt. By late winter, the tension that had been building behind showroom doors finally cracked. Regional meetings that were once quiet check-ins became heated exchanges. One longtime dealer stood up in a crowded conference room and said what many had been thinking: "We built this brand long before the data guys showed up." His words hung in the air like exhaust smoke after a cold start. Heads nodded, some clapped softly, others stayed silent. But nobody disagreed. Dealers across the country were feeling the same frustration. They were being told to change everything about how they sold, yet given no clear tools to make it happen. Headquarters talked about modern outreach and digital ecosystems, but never explained how that paid the bills or kept technicians in the shop. The factory was promising alignment. Dealers were just trying to survive another quarter. The distance between Milwaukee and Main Street felt wider than ever. In small towns and big cities alike, owners met in private groups, trading stories about slipping margins and delayed shipments. Some blamed the economy, others blamed leadership. But most agreed on one thing: Harley's direction no longer felt like a partnership. The pride was still there, carved into every sign and stitched onto every jacket. But it was pride mixed with exhaustion. They'd bent to new rules before, but this time felt different. This was personal. They may bend the rules, but they won't bend the flag, and the noise they made was about to echo far beyond the dealerships. Riders hear the rumble. The first rumors reached the riders, the same way news always travels in the motorcycle world, at rallies, bars, and backroads rest stops. "Did you hear what the new boss told them?" someone would ask, half laughing, half angry. By the second beer, the story would grow legs. Some said the CEO was shutting down classic models. Others swore he planned to cut dealer bonuses. The truth got twisted, but the feeling didn't. Riders sensed that something was off. In parking lots under neon signs, You could see it on their faces. Old friends leaned against road glides and ultras, trading opinions like poker chips. Some shrugged it off. "Every new suit thinks he can fix Harley," one said. Others took it harder. "If they kill what made us loyal, we're done," came the reply. The debate wasn't just about business, it was about belonging. For many, Harley wasn't a brand. It was the soundtrack of their lives. Patches from past runs, faded and cracked, told stories the spreadsheets never could. The chrome still glinted under the streetlights, but there was an edge to the laughter now. Riders remembered other crossroads, the AMF years, the emission battles, the 2008 crash. Harley had been through hell before and made it back, but this time the threat didn't come from competitors or the government. It came from inside. What riders felt in their gut, the supply chain soon confirmed. And the signs of that strain began showing up where it hurt most. If you value straight talk and want more inside coverage on what's really happening behind the Harley badge, subscribe now. Every story we tell is built for riders who still care about the truth, the machines, and the miles ahead, parts, service, and the quiet squeeze. At first, it was just little things. A dealer would mention that a shipment was late, or a part that used to arrive in a week now took 3. Then the pattern grew. Paint codes started disappearing from the order system without notice. Chrome trim options went temporarily unavailable. Even basic service kits took longer to get. The official explanation was realignment of supplier networks, but everyone knew what that meant: cost cuts and control. For riders, those missing parts translated into longer waits and higher bills. A guy who once booked a winter service to beat the spring rush found himself waiting until May for a replacement piece. Independent shops started seeing more walk-ins, riders desperate for any solution to keep their machines on the road. Aftermarket suppliers quietly celebrated as sales jumped. The real problem wasn't delays, it was doubt. Dependability defined Harley, but when parts vanished, trust followed. Dealers hoarded stock, riders lost faith. Beneath the jokes lingered truth. You can't build loyalty on back orders or pride when chrome turns scarce. When chrome gets scarce, trust starts to rust. And once that happens, the open road doesn't sound the same. Rivals move in. While Harley wrestled with its own identity, the competition wasted no time. Honda rolled out new ads focused on reliability and comfort, words that spoke directly to riders frustrated with delays and costs. Indian leaned into heritage, showcasing American design without corporate stiffness. Even Kawasaki, long an outsider in the cruiser world, began hinting at its true touring spirit. It was a quiet ambush, but an effective one. Some longtime Harley riders started looking over the fence, not out of betrayal, but out of practicality. A few test drove other brands, just to see, expecting to hate the experience. Some came back surprised. One man admitted, "It didn't sound like a Harley, but it sure felt dependable." Those words stung for anyone who had spent decades preaching brand loyalty. Yet, beneath the pride, there was a creeping realism. The sense that a machine's worth is measured by how often it starts, not by the logo on its tank. Some refused to switch, seeing rivals as challenge, not threat. They believed Harley could recover if it listened again. But belief has limits, patience runs out. The market tested not just bikes, but the brand's soul. And loyalty, once cracked, rarely welds whole. This wasn't just business. It was a test of identity. And what came next would decide whether Harley's legacy could still outlast the storm. America's factory crossroads. Harley Davidson's struggle isn't happening in a vacuum. It's part of a much bigger American story, one about rising costs, global suppliers, and vanishing trades. Once, every part of a Harley's frame was stamped in the AFMA, same country where the rider filled its tank. The metal, the bolts, even the paint came from places where people knew what that bike meant. You could tour the plant and shake the hands that built your machine. Today, the supply chain stretches across oceans. Raw steel ships in from overseas, and components arrive in boxes stamped with names few riders can pronounce. Across industries, craftsmanship fades while efficiency rises. For Harley, that loss cuts deeper. A brand once defined by American muscle now measures margins, not pride. Talk of bringing production home lingers, but nostalgia meets math, and patriotism aches because it still cares. And while the factory retools its identity, the people inside those walls are wrestling with their own sense of loyalty. Labor and loyalty. You can feel the unease on the factory floor. Conversations that once focused on production targets now drift toward job security. The union meetings have grown a little fuller, the questions sharper. Workers want clarity, not just about wages, but about direction. They've seen departments merged, supervisors reassigned, and new titles appear out of nowhere. Each change feels like a card shuffle, and nobody's sure who's holding the winning hand. These men and women aren't outsiders to Harley's story. They are the story. When markets crashed, they stayed. When sales dipped, they tightened bolts and kept the line moving. Many have children who grew up on those paychecks and now work the same shifts. The pride runs deep, but so does the frustration. It's not rebellion, it's fatigue. The feeling of being told you matter while decisions happen 3 floors above your head. Dealers and factory workers share the same fatigue. Different roles, same worry. They kept Harley alive when numbers failed, built through lean years and stayed loyal. Now they wait, hoping leadership remembers one truth. Loyalty only lasts when it's returned. But even the most loyal riders can't ignore what's happening beyond the factory. In their own garages, their wallets, and the used bike market. Rider's wallet and legacy. On the ground, the effects are already showing up in everyday ownership. Resale values on older touring models have started to dip slightly. Not because the machines are worse, but because uncertainty always shakes confidence. A road glide from 2015 that once fetched top dollar might now sit longer before a sale. Meanwhile, certain model years, like the late 2010s Electra Glide Ultras, are holding strong thanks to their balance of comfort and reliability. Insurance premiums are another quiet signal. Companies are tightening rates for high-value touring bikes, especially those over 1,700 cubic centimeters. Rising replacement costs and limited parts supply make payouts more expensive. Riders who used to pay a modest premium now face numbers that sting. And then there's the parts issue. Genuine factory components are harder to find, and the aftermarket is booming to fill the gap. Veteran riders know this cycle: hype, scarcity, survival. The stakes are higher now. Smart riders study value, act early, and trust experience. When years on the road teach you to read the signs, you don't wait. You act before impact hits. Yet, beyond the numbers and the nickel and dime worries, something deeper is stirring. A cultural reckoning that no spreadsheet can measure. The cultural reckoning. All the speeches, reports, and strategies trace back to one truth. This isn't just about bikes, it's about identity. When the new CEO stood before those dealers months ago, his words weren't only directed at them, they were aimed at everyone who ever felt a Harley rumble in their chest and called it home. The real message wasn't about market share or marketing plans. It was a challenge to decide what kind of company Harley Davidson would be in this next era, and what kind of riders would carry it forward. Some will say the brand's best years are behind it. Others, the hopeful few, believe the storm is only clearing the air for a rebuild. Either way, the culture that surrounds Harley isn't corporate. It's human. It lives in weekend rides, cross-country runs, and garage conversations that stretch past midnight. It's the smell of oil and leather, the sound of laughter at a roadside diner, the sight of a bike that still turns heads after 20 years. That's the legacy no boardroom can buy or kill. No matter how many times the company rewrites its playbook, riders still write their own stories. Strategies fade, but real riders keep the truth alive. Mile after mile, heartbeat after heartbeat. Proving this brand rides on steel, not slogans. Because when the engines fade and the headlines pass, what remains isn't policy or profit. It's the echo of a culture that refuses to die. What we just heard from Harley's new CEO isn't just another corporate soundbite. It's a warning that the old playbook might finally be over. Whether you think he's right or completely out of touch, one thing's clear: the next few months will show what kind of company Harley really wants to be. And there you have it, Harley Davidson's 2026 lineup. A true return to the steel, torque, and soul that built the brand. These 7 bikes aren't just machines. They're a message that Harley is listening again. To the riders who never stopped believing. If you love seeing real motorcycles built for real riders, make sure to drop a comment below. Tell me which model you're most excited about and why. Don't forget to hit that like button if you want to keep Harley's comeback rolling strong. And subscribe so you don't miss the next video.